Well, thank you for tuning into the after show. We are so excited that you are here. We believe we're going to share some awesome conversation around the message that we just heard from Pastor Kevin. Thank you for tuning in. I'm here with Pastor Geoff and Sarah Kessler. We are going to have a great time today. So the first thing I want to ask is this morning, what was your favorite thing that Pastor Kevin said? Actually, I'm going to just jump ahead and answer my own question before I give it to you two. He said, we were created for diversity, not for division or for divide. And I love that so much. I think in our culture right now, we are not talking a lot about diversity. And so when he said that, man, my ears perked up and I began to think about the heart of God and how he sees all of us. I love that. I think it's a message that should be shouted from the rooftops, especially today. Pastor Geoff, what was your favorite part?
My favorite, I mean, there was a ton, but my favorite was the reference to the cruise ship versus the battleship. And then putting that on top of what you're talking about with diversity is like not everybody is the captain of the battleship. Not everybody is the torpedo launcher. Like there's immense diversity in a battleship, but everybody has a place and they're all one team and they're all on one mission.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
no, that's a really great thought. Sarah, what about you?
I love when he talked about how you can't succeed spiritually alone. And of course, like immediately I thought of just like a ton of times in my life where like if you're going through something difficult and you have those people there that are like cheering you on or like, hey, I've been there before, you're going to get through this, I got through it, and you can like kind of share stories together. But then I thought of how like the iron sharpens iron aspect and you can't succeed spiritually alone. Like right now, being home with my family all the time, the Lord Jesus knows that like some things are coming to the surface that are like, okay, like we're sharpening each other. Like, cause like when I'm home alone for like the very, very short moments of time where like John takes all the kids for their bike ride or something, I'm like, wow, I'm like the most patient, loving person ever. Like, this is great. And then they all get home and I'm like, again, you know?
That's awesome.
So that like helps us though. Like we need each other, not just to cheer each other on, but to like sharpen each other.
Right. Absolutely. No, that's such a good thought. I definitely think, I'm that person that's like, I just need this time away from everyone to get this rest. And I'm like, God, why are you allowing me to be in isolation? Please send some people. No, I really think that's awesome. And what would you say to the person though, that's saying, I don't know how to be in community. Like I'm just isolated simply because I don't know how to jump in. And I feel like a lot of questions have been coming in from our church family about how to really get plugged in. What would you say to the person that feels like they're in isolation?
To me, the recognizing that we're all human. So I think sometimes you can think, like I can trick myself into thinking everybody else knows how to be a good friend. Everybody else has it all together. Everybody else seems like they're professionals at this. But if I step in, I feel like I'm super awkward. And but it changed my life when I realized everybody's human, including me. And everybody probably feels that. And I can just get over myself just as I am, in some ways asking them to get over themselves. And when that like pride of performance starts to come down, like just to at least to call it what it is in my life. I can isolate myself because I'm afraid of how I might like perform, and then I stay in the shadows. But like the shadows are dark and scary, and my humanity wants me to be with people. So just push yourself out there and be human with everyone else.
Right, super good. Sarah?
I would say get off social media and make a dang phone call.
Yes.
Like phone call,
yes.
FaceTime, because like I have a love-hate relationship with social media because like you feel connected, but it's not real. You know what I mean? Like there's an element of it that is just not even kind of the depth of relationship that God wants us to have with people. Like we talked about today, because you get on social media and you're like, oh my gosh, everybody's baking bread but me. Like those bagels look delicious and I wish I knew how to make them. I should be doing more. I should be more productive during this time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But then you call somebody and then you hear their kids going crazy in the background too. You're like, oh, okay, like we're normal.
Yeah, absolutely. What's the difference between building people versus building ministry? And I think this question is phenomenal. What is the difference? Sarah, we'll start with you. What does that look like for the difference between building people versus building ministry?
That one's tricky. Like, I mean, people, like we talked about today, people matter. People are what matters. And so building ministry, I guess, like, what does that even mean? What does building ministry mean? Does that mean building more things to do, you know? Because those things are made up of people. I don't know. I feel like I'm rambling.
I think it speaks to like, it speaks to investing in people, like knowing where they're at, knowing where their problems are, like really just getting down to where they are versus what they're doing, you know? So Pastor Geoff, what would you say to that?
I wrote down my good versus our good. And if it's building ministry or building a business or building my empire, it's like, well, this is for my good. But then it's not even just like building you isn't even just for your good. It's like it's for our good. So the difference between building people and building ministry is where my focus is, and that it's like it's focused on togetherness, not just me doing my thing at your expense.
Yeah.
And it, like from what Pastor Kevin highlighted, it's so significant that the Bible inspired word in a time where papyrus and ink was expensive, they used that to write down people's names.
Yeah.
So I think that's a huge message that Paul would end, as Pastor Kevin made that like very clear, but Paul would end on names of people, like human beings.
Yeah.
And that's the like for our good, like I recognize this person, I recognize that person, I'm building this person.
That's beautiful.
That's so good. I love that. That helps it like make more sense for me even, honestly, because it's like, okay, like that is where he landed. And he didn't talk about, hey, look at all the things we did together. Like, remember when we gave food, like we did that and we gave money to that, like what, you know, all those things are so good and so valuable because in the end it is helping people and that's what it's about. But instead it was like, okay, let's end with the most important. Like, remember when we did that together? Yeah. Remember when you and I, and remember when you did, like it's all about people.
Yeah, that's super good. So with that thought in mind of together, how do we help other people spiritually succeed? What does Pastor Kevin mean when he says that? Like, we don't do this alone. We can't spiritually succeed without others. How do we help people do that? What would you guys say?
Jumping off like what Sarah just said, the fellow worker language that Paul used, that he's like, he focused on the fellow workers, not even on the task. And I wrote down like I think there was a quote from someone else that no one ever makes it to the Olympics without a coach. And then no one makes it, as I was kind of processing that, is no one, even like gymnastics or single athlete sports, you see these champions walk off the arena or the rink or whatever it is that they're doing individually. You see them walk off and there's a crowd of people around them cheering them on. So there's fellow workers, like champions build people and they find a way to have that fellow worker thing. And we can see that in sports, we can see that in business, and of course in spirituality.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'm down and I need someone else to pull me up. Sometimes I'm up and I have the opportunity to pull somebody else up.
Yep.
So.
I love it, Sarah.
I think just stripping away like all the pedestals that, like, you know what I mean? Like somebody like in a position, like he talked about Phoebe, like was in this position, you know, but it wasn't this pedestal thing of like, so she must be so much more spiritual or holy, like taking that down to find out where people are even at spiritually, I feel like begins with you yourself being super vulnerable with them, because people are never going to open up to you and say, hey, this is like actually what I'm struggling with right now and what I need some encouragement in a certain area. If you don't first go, hey, like these are some things I've struggled with, you know, because people are going to, especially if you're like up in front of people, sometimes people think like, man, you got it all together. And like some days like that couldn't be further from the truth.
Exactly. Yeah. So maybe this, after both of those thoughts, speaking to this point right here, what is the value of transparency right now, 6 weeks into quarantine? Everyone kind of just, we're tired of doing the same thing. It kind of feels like Groundhog Day, same thing over and over and over again. What would you guys say is the value of transparency right now in this time? And what's your wisdom for the people at home who have been doing the same thing over and over and over again? How do you find life? How do you find energy? How do you feel spiritually inspired? What would you say?
I think it's so valuable. Sarah modeled this just a few seconds ago, but when she was like, "Hey, I don't have it all together. When I'm by myself and whatever, everything's controlled. I feel like the most patient person. But as soon as other things come into that, it's so valuable for me, Sarah, to hear you say that. And had you made the choice to pretend like you had it all together, like that's hurting all of us because, so for me, when I make the choice to not be vulnerable or to not be real or to put on some other mask, it's hurting. It's like it's hurting me and it's hurting the person who's seeing me.
Right.
Because both of us are just like, oh, I guess that's the social normal thing to do is put this mask there. And So that's like that for sure is where depression and everybody else is one way and I'm a different way. Like when we're not vulnerable with each other, we start to, goes to a bad place.
Yeah, for sure.
Sure. Like shame wants you to feel like, hey, you're the only one. You're the only one struggling. You're the only one feeling this way. You know, everybody else is doing better than you. And then there's you, you know? And so to just strip that away, I think is so valuable. Like practically, so when every day literally feels exactly the same right now. Yesterday I went for a bike ride by myself. And I have to say, it was honestly the most glorious thing I've probably done in the last 6 weeks. Like
That's awesome.
I put my earbuds in and I cranked up some worship music. And I didn't even care. Like I'm literally riding on the bike path past people and I'm just singing out loud and like at moments like crying, hanging out with Jesus. Like it was a powerful moment.
Yeah.
Like I was just like, the sun is shining. This is great. Like, so I would just say practically like try something different. Do something out of the ordinary when everything feels so ordinary and feels so mundane and feels so the same. Like do something different. Go somewhere new. Go for a walk. Like bake some bread. I don't know. Do something different. Maybe that's why everybody's baking
Hashtag bake bread.
Bake bread.
That's awesome.
There is that like make your bed principle, like whether you feel like it or not. Today's a beautiful day. Like go for a walk. I read something about running because I'm trying to get into running, and it said like instead of in your mind saying you're going to go run 6 miles, in your mind say you're going to put running clothes on. It's like just make it doable and.
Well, I've been wearing exercise clothes every day, so.
So it's like if I put my running shoes on and I like get outside, then I'm one more step closer to running a loop around the neighborhood. Then if I run one loop, I'm one more. There is that principle of just like get up, make your bed, do the things that you know are the right things to do. Don't let feelings be the thing that controls you, but we get to choose what our life is. So on the practical side, it's like I want to be a person that waves and smiles. I want to be a person that is of peace. I want to, I'll do all those practical things.
Man, that's awesome. Mount Hope Church, I encourage you to pursue joy. I encourage you to really to see what you can do to help people grow spiritually. I truly believe what Pastor Kevin says, no one succeeds spiritually alone. Man, these conversations, these questions are geared to help you have a conversation with your life group. We want you to be in a life group because that's where we get to grow together. And we want you to share your thoughts, your opinions, your feelings, and for other people to speak and to help you process what you're going through. That's what a church family looks like. Thank you so much for tuning in today. We love you. We believe God has something great for you and your family. God bless you.